Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders. Welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we are going to be reviewing the Netflix original film, Marriage Story. Now, basically to talk about this movie is literally to go right into the plot of the film, so I'm actually going to jump right into this film instead of going through my normal just spiel about talking about the movie beforehand. Because the plot, is basically what you saw with the trailer. The trailer was a very interesting trailer to say the least, because you have these two characters. You have Nicole and Charlie, played by Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and the trailer is basically showing you how the film itself starts. You have these two characters individually telling what they love about each other. What does Charlie love about Nicole, and what bugs him about Nicole, but loves, point out the little things here and there that makes Nicole the way she is, why you love her, and vice versa, with Nicole saying the same thing of why does she love Charlie, how is Charlie as a person, and the stuff that bugs her but makes her love him even more. And as we get to the end of that beautiful beginning, it's a very, very beautiful beginning, which is what made me want to watch this movie in the first place, is because that's what we saw in the trailer, was their descriptions of why they love this particular person, and to then find out that this is something that they had written down to be told to a marriage mediator, and then that they don't get to tell this to the other person, because at that point the marriage has hit an inevitable dead space, and they're ready to be in a divorce, at least more one side over the other. So you get to hear these beautiful words said from both actors about one another that does not ever get to actually say it to one another, in a sense. And that's kind of what a lot of this movie is. It's the movie of a marriage story, which it honestly should be called a divorce story, because that's ultimately what this film is that it is the journey, the very rough and hard to watch story of two people who fell in love with one another, been together for a long time, had a kid, supported one another, stuff like that, and then ultimately watch it burn to the ground, as you basically, like we see in most films, when someone has a divorce. It's either very over the top, or it's very one-sided, or it's a secondary plot device. It's not something that drives the focus of the film. And that's what Marriage Story is. Marriage Story is about these two characters who were in love with each other, and that love has now gone away, and we are now watching literally what a divorce process is throughout this film. And that's basically the general plot of this film, is as a former couple going through the stages of divorce. Now, what works about this film overall are the two lead actor and actresses in this film. Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson. Scarlett Johansson's having herself a year. With Avengers Endgame, which was one of her best Black Widow performances, to Jojo Rabbit being in my opinion, the best supporting actress performance of the year so far, to now this performance as Nicole. Scarlett Johansson's going out of her way to basically say, look, I'm more than just Black Widow. I am this fantastic actress, which I always knew she was, but she's been doing Black Widow and just kind of like these action films throughout the last decade, and she really hasn't gone out of her way to show herself in terms of a phenomenal actress. And with Jojo Rabbit and now this film, she's really coming into her own, and basically saying, I can do both. I can be the comic book superhero and an award-nominated or award-winning actress at the same time. And Scarlett Johansson does a phenomenal job in this film as Nicole, as a woman who wants to have her own spotlight. She has a whole amazing monologue in the beginning of the film about wanting to have her own piece of the world, but she's never able to have the strength to just go out and take it. She tends to, like most people in a relationship, follow or guide through with the other significant other. If the significant other is very successful in one thing, they're gonna do everything they can to make them better and support them, but losing themselves in the process. And that is kind of what's going on with Nicole's journey here. And when she finally has had enough of that and wants to basically go out and do her own thing, that's where the end of the marriage truly ultimately comes to an end, to a point. Yes, and as she's describing the story, it does sound very selfish. You know, me, I want me. Which, to some people, it's like, wow, I don't like Scarlett Johansson as a character, or she's just a very selfish character, but we're all selfish people up to a point. And while you can look at it that way, you can also kind of put yourself in the same situation. It's like, I've been there. I've been on that side of a relationship where I've put everything I could into what my significant other was doing, that I lost myself in the process, and now it's my time to have this. And when your significant other does not help you, you really do ultimately feel alone. And Scarlett Johansson does a fantastic job of doing that. Now, Charlie, on the other hand, he's that guy who is so into what he's doing that he's not paying attention to the social cues that's happening around him, which is ultimately what causes him to lose Nicole in the story, is that he's so focused on his craft that he thinks that everything with him and Nicole are fine. In a sense, where once again it's a simple conversation between the two, which it seems like they just always kind of danced around the issue and never went straight towards it, which is ultimately where the collapse of this relationship became, is that they couldn't just go to the heart of the issue. They always just beat it around the bush until inevitably the relationship was broken. Charlie, played by Adam Driver, easily his best performance I've ever seen him do. His emotional range through this story, from being coming off like he's being supportive, but he's not being the right kind of supportive for Nicole, to being completely blindsided by the divorce, to then also just being utterly crushed and broken by the divorce lawyers, to then just growing that anger and hatred and just self-defeat of what a divorce can do to a person, and then acceptance and learning to move on and live, being a divorcee and learning to get along with his ex-wife because they have a child. Adam Driver does a phenomenal job, and it is one of the best acting performances of the year, bar none, and he definitely should be nominated for Best Actor for his performance that he does here. Both these two work beautifully off each other. There are two, each one of them has their own individual scenes where they just blow it out of the park, but there's one particular moment about 90 minutes in where these two just finally go at it. And it is a hard 5 minutes to watch, but it is some of the best acting that we have seen from these two ever, and easily one of the best well-acted scenes of this year. Like along the lines of Blind Spotting last year, at that very end scene with Daveed Diggs rapping in the garage to the police officer. This is like one of those scenes. You have two scenes, or this scene with these two phenomenal actors, so raw with emotion and anger and hatred and sadness, just going at each other. It is one of my favorite scenes of the year, bar none. Both these two actors do a phenomenal job. You also have a solid supporting cast by Laura Dern, who plays the divorce attorney for Nicole. I think she could be potentially in the running for a supporting actress nomination, as she just kind of comes in and just chews the scenery as a divorce lawyer. And every time she's in there, she just brings this energy to the movie as it's happening. Ray Liotta comes in, and he's got a couple scenes as Charlie's divorce lawyer. Alan Alda, he comes in as another divorce lawyer. He's really good in his scenes. The rest of the supporting cast kind of meh the rest of the way, but the dialogue, the script, that especially that Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson have to do is phenomenal, and they knock it out of the park with their performances. It is not an easy watch. This is not a movie that you're going to watch for pure entertainment. You're watching this for the performances of Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. This is not an enjoyable film. Just like Joker. Joker was not a feel-good movie. You wanted to see Joker because you wanted to see Joaquin Phoenix's performance. It's not a happy movie. It's a sad movie. And Marriage Story is very much that. It's got some humor in it. It's got some levity in it. But ultimately, it is a story of heartbreak, sadness, and anger, and the stages of divorce. But you're watching it for this phenomenal performance of these two characters. And it's one of the best films of the year per that. It's just not a movie that you're going to be like, I love that movie, I can't wait to watch it multiple times. It's not going to be that. I mean, this was a very hard movie to get through. There are times in this film that you love one character and you hate the other, and then it flips and you hate the other character and you love the other character. There are times where Nicole is bubbly and lovable and you love Scarlett Johansson, and then 5 minutes later you can't stand her character because of how she's acting and how she's treating Charlie, and vice versa. And the same thing with Charlie. You feel so sorry and so bad for Charlie and the stuff that he's going through, but then you find out a little bit more about his character, and then all of a sudden you don't feel as bad for him anymore. It's like a seesaw of emotion between these two characters because frankly no one's perfect. And these two characters, the way the movie starts with these two talking about how much they love each other, till we get to that one point in the movie that I'm talking about where they finally go at it, are two separate oceans in terms of where they're at, and just watching these characters go from that point in the film to this point in the film to acceptance later on in the film is a beautiful thing to watch. Might not be as enjoyable to watch it, but it is a beautiful watch nonetheless. Like I said, what does not work for the film in general is, like I said, it's not an easy watch. You're going to hate these characters at certain points throughout this film. But you hate them because of what the script is making them do, not because they're bad performances. It's because everything is muddy. Everything is bloody when it comes to divorce. There are good guys, there are bad guys, and those parts switch depending on the situation. I will say that they do tend to point the negativity and the hatred more towards Scarlett Johansson's character in this film than Adam Driver. Adam Driver does tend to get more of the emotional support from the viewer, more so than Scarlett does. So in terms of it being balanced, I do say that the scales do lean more towards Adam Driver's character in the film over Scarlett, which I feel like it could have balanced it out a little bit more, given Scarlett, she kind of almost feels like a secondary character to Adam Driver, even though they are both leading characters in the story. Adam is definitely more the focal point than Scarlett, and I feel like they could have balanced that out a little bit more. Julie Haggerty and Merritt Weaver, they play Nicole's mother and sister. Both times they were on screen, the times they were on the screen, I just don't feel like they really meshed well with the story they were being told. They seem to be kind of forced in for comedic value, and this is not supposed to be a funny film. This is supposed to be a drama about love and loss and growth, and they just kind of fell out of place with the film overall. Same thing with Wallace Shawn. He pops in at one point. He's one of the characters on Charlie's side of the story, and it just seemed like I just want to be a horny old man, which is really out of Wallace Shawn's character element. But it's just, once again, it's the side characters outside of Laura Dern and Ray Liotta and Alan Alda, they just seem to be thrown in for more comedic value, and that's not what was needed for this story. And then I also wasn't a particular fan of the young actor who played their son, Henry Azzy Robertson. I just didn't like his performance overall. It just felt weak, borderline annoying for most of the film. He did get better as the film went on, but I feel like a better child actor could have made the performance a lot stronger, because that character is just as important as Charlie and Nicole's, because you're also seeing the kid's side of the divorce, but I just don't feel like this child actor was as good as he could have been. So, I mean, those are really the negatives when it comes to Marriage Story. But so, I mean, going to overall thoughts for the film, this is easily one of the best well-done films of the year. It's one of the best well-acted films of the year when it comes to the main cast, being Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson, Laura Dern, Ray Liotta. The surrounding cast, not so much, but they're not in it enough to deter from the film itself. Yes, I do think that Adam Driver gets a lot more sympathy and support in the film overall compared to Scarlett Johansson. She does tend to get more of the bad guy role in this movie. if you're watching it from a certain point of view. They could have given her just a little bit more. Like, they gave a lot to her in the beginning and not a lot about Adam. It kind of felt like 60-40 towards Adam than it was for Scarlet. They should have balanced it out a little bit more. And like I said, the film overall, it's a phenomenal film. It's a must-watched film. But just don't go into it expecting to enjoy the film. Go into it expecting it to watch it, a beautiful performance by these two actors. So, I mean, going to overall score, because of how beautifully well done it is and how it's shot and how it's directed and how the script is played, Marriage Story is one of the best films of the year, hands down. And I'm going to be giving it a 9.3 out of 10, which means it does crack into the top 10 of 2019 so far. Now, will it stay there when we go into the final top 10 of 2019? Probably not. It is right up there with a big group of fantastic films. And in terms of enjoyability, it's probably going to fall down a few slots in terms of where it's at compared to the films that are around it, just because those other ones are just more fun to watch. But it does get a 9.3 out of 10, which means going into the top 10 films of 2019, Avengers Endgame is still at that number 1 spot, Jojo Rabbit at number 2, Ford v Ferrari at 3, Joker at 4, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood at number 5, Parasite at 6, Knives Out at 7, Toy Story 4 at 8, with Marriage Story coming in at the number 9 spot, with Rocket Man at 10, with Dr. Sleep dropping out of the top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up on the channel, as you guys have been seeing, the Movie Crusaders have been riding through the Star Wars galaxy. We just did Empire Strikes Back yesterday. Return of the Jedi will be coming out around Monday-ish, and then we go into the new trilogy with Force Awakens and the Battle of the Last Jedi between Jade Burns and Kirk Kowalski, so be ready to watch that. Next week, we've got a few films coming out. 100% Jumanji, be ready for that review, because we will definitely have that. The other films that are coming out, they're more kind of indie films, so I'll get to them when I can. They're definitely some of the better films to pay attention to coming into the year, but they are going to be harder for me based on where I'm at to try and see them. But 100% Jumanji, there will be a review for that. Like I said, Richard Jewell, Bombshell, Uncut Gems, they all come out next week as well, but they're probably going to be harder for me to see right from the get-go, so we'll just see where that goes. But yeah, be on the lookout for more of the Star Wars videos popping up, and then of course, like I said, Jumanji next week. And until next time, Movie Crusaders, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.